Hello. So this video is going to be like partially sort of personal anecdotes and partially advice because I feel like now is an important time to sort of cover this topic because I don't live in the US myself, but I get vague glimpses of what's happening over there through the news and stuff, and it sounds like the whole trans thing is not great. I actually kind of feel bad for trans people in the US at the moment, just with certain laws and stuff. And so yeah, I feel like that as a trans person myself, that I probably should, I guess, talk about the whole trans thing. I think I have wanted to talk about representation for a while. I think, it was probably 2 years ago now. There was one Pride Month I was going to make a video going through, here's a list of, canonically LGBTQ characters in anime and manga and stuff. I literally like half wrote the script and just didn't get around to making it, and like June had passed and I was like, oh whoops. But yeah, because this video will be partially, writing helpful writing advice, but also just me talking about my experience as a trans person. So yeah, I guess if you didn't know, hi, I am trans. Ignore this. I I was testing to make sure if a marker had ink. But getting permanent markers dry pretty quickly and don't come off easily. So yes, I do have a random blue mark on my hand, and also just paint all over my fingers because I've been doing art stuff and using messy mediums. So yeah, I would say I'm trans masc, sort of in the masculine non-binary area. I'm not on hormones or anything, so yeah, I'll just give a bit of background on my sort of experience. So I'm AFAB, which means I was assigned female at birth. And yeah, I initially came out as non-binary, I think 2 years ago now. And then I sort of went, nah, I'm a dude. And then I'm like, then I was like, maybe I'm like in between. I'm somewhere. So, my pronouns, I guess, like, started, I was assigned she, her, then I went to the they, them, then I went to he, him, because I'm like, those are the dude pronouns. Then I'm like, well, I still like they, so I'll go he, they, but I am getting rid of the he, not for any gender-related reasons, but because I have an assessment task that I was doing for uni, which is why I haven't released a video, like, it's a bit delayed, and, the pronoun he has personally annoyed me. So basically, we're doing critiques of Shakespeare sonnets, and I just wanted to double check that he was actually a gendered pronoun in Shakespeare's time, because the assessment specifically said, hey, make sure to check that words had the same meaning back in Shakespeare's time as they do now, because, that will affect how you analyze it. And I went to double check, and Wikipedia suggested that that around the Middle English, which is Shakespeare's time, was when that change occurred. And then I just couldn't find further resources and stuff. So I had enough sources to indicate that there was potentially doubt that would ruin my argument, but not enough to actually confirm in my head. So yeah, no more he, because he personally annoyed me. I believe in being petty. If a pronoun annoys you, don't use it. It doesn't just have to be a gender thing. You can just be annoyed at a pronoun because it was 2 a.m. and you emailed your professor being like, I am freaking out over a pronoun, over just he. So I guess him, you're on thin ice, but him, you might be okay because you aren't the one that caused me the strife. So yeah, slight tangent, but yes, I guess good thing I kind of delayed this, because we've had that pronoun change, not for any gender-related reasons, but purely because I am petty, and I am spiting. It's like I'm boycotting using the word for myself, just because it caused me annoyance in an assessment. So yeah, I guess you're probably wondering, like, what my views are on representation. It is definitely a lot better in general than it used to be. We are getting more characters that are canonically trans, like, in general. I mean, this could possibly change in the next couple of years, as we've seen with, Disney had a show that was going to have a canonically trans character, have a trans storyline that they cut. Probably to do with just, I imagine it would have something to do with how like it's contentious and stuff, because Disney is very performative. They only put things in there because for like it was profitable. Like they do not give us stuff about representation. They are a corporation. They will do whatever makes them money. So if having representation presents a financial risk, they will cut it out. They do not care about us. They'll sell you a rainbow shirt saying with Mickey on it being like woo pride, but then have 17 first gay characters because they are unwilling to actually go the distance. Like, because queer representation, like, naturally this conversation is going to include not just trans stuff. So yeah, it's better than it has been like historically, because you know generally most people are a fair bit more accepting. I mean, you do have like extreme stuff, but like I guess people are more aware of it as a concept. I'm not sure when I first became aware of trans people existing. I know I had things in my childhood, but like that were presented to me and stuff. Like, so I learned about I didn't realize, I don't know if I wasn't told them of like being like actual like trans women in Thailand, I think it was, but I remember being like, because I grew up in a very traditional family, very conservative. So like our political stuff works slightly different here in Australia. So most people tend to vote more based on like profession, if that makes sense. Like we do have the more conservative party and the more progressive party, but like I had a friend who was also fairly conservative and stuff, and they voted for the opposite party because it represented workers, whereas I guess this guy that was sort of very conservative that I like, I'm gonna say my surrogate father, because he served as that sort of role. We didn't call him dad or anything, but that was sort of his role in my life, because my father, my biological father, sucked, to put it simply. I related way too much to Todoroki, if that'll give you an idea of my childhood. Yeah, relating to Todoroki is not a good sign if you want to think that you had a nice, happy little childhood. But yeah, like, so, you know, he thought that Trump was cool, very traditional with values, like, wouldn't eat quiche, because he thought that quiche was, real men didn't eat quiche, which actually, I found out the history of where that phrase came from, explained it to him, and he still just, like, he wasn't someone that you could, his beliefs weren't based in rationale. Like, he was also a fair bit older, so I think he was born in the 50s, which also I guess gives a little bit of context as to, not that it's an excuse, but like older people tend to have like just, you know, the values that were present when they were younger and stuff. So yeah, like he sort of mentioned things like I remember being told as a kid. I don't know how old I was, but like the idea that I was told about like the ladyboys in Thailand. And presented on like just thinking about it, it was very victim blamey, like basically presented as if like it's their fault if they just didn't dress up like women and trick men, they wouldn't get beaten up, which is disgusting when I think back on it, like telling a child about this. And yeah, the victim blaming. The first time I remember an explicitly like canonically trans character in media was the show Ally McBeal, which wasn't really a show that most people my age grew up with. We didn't have like TV. We just used DVDs and stuff. So a lot of stuff that I watched in my childhood was things that my mum watched. Like, so Ally McBeal was like a lawyer show in the 90s, I think. And yeah, there was an episode or so that had one of the characters was dating a trans woman. And like the whole like thing was to do with like it was a secret, and like basically everyone except for the guy knew through like workplace gossip, and they were like, you need to tell him, and like reveal that you haven't had the bottom surgery and stuff. So yeah, I think that was the first time I ever saw like canonically trans representation. I don't know if I knew the terminology for it. And then I guess things we talked about at school, except I didn't really take it very seriously. I also did go to a Christian school, but it was kind of because you'd have things about oh, you can't just assume people's gender. It was, and we to go to class, you had to line up in a line of girls and boys. And the disruptive naughty kids would go, oh, you can't assume my gender and stand in the opposite line. So I guess for me, being the good A grade, didn't get detention, didn't break rules student, I guess that also went into me going, well, your good kids just go by gender norms. They stand in the correct line. They do what you're supposed to do. Or things you'd have a lot of the girls were they didn't want to wear the uniform because it was a skirt. They wanted to wear shorts. And so, yeah, things that sort of were it seems acts of rebellion, and being a naughty kid was associated with sort of, I guess, not trans necessarily, gender nonconformity, I guess. So I guess that also probably contributed to why I didn't figure it out until after I left school, because I was in an environment where it was very gendered. We had roll call was gendered, so instead of having it just your class, it was year 9 and 10 girls were together and year 9 and 10 boys were together. And there was also things on excursions, they'd have Bible talks and stuff based on gender, so we all got told about gossip and stuff, because I went to the girl ones. So yeah, very gendered things that have probably contributed to not clicking. There's a lot of things in retrospect that were hints, but I was just in an environment where exploring it was not safe. I would not have been accepted by the guy, his name was Shane. He would not have been accepting. He was very homophobic, and people that are homophobic tend to also be pretty transphobic. So I think I just suppressed a lot of those things. I didn't start even thinking about those things until after he passed away from cancer. That sounds kind of heavy, but yeah, after he was no longer in my life, it took that for me to feel safe, to explore it. And it's not that I was intentionally, I just, yeah, it wasn't something I was in a position to explore. Yeah. So it didn't take long after I was safe enough for my brain to start going, oh. So yeah, some signs, I guess, because yeah, I definitely still did a lot of conventionally girly things, still do. I guess, that's probably why non-binary more fits, because I don't know, I just find not doing stuff because of gender rules is kind of dumb to me. I actually used to think as a kid that being born a girl was advantageous, until I learned about the patriarchy and sexism. Very disappointed. But because it was girls would be more willing to, do things like choir and dancing, whereas guys would do that because that was girly. I could read girls' books and boys' books. I could wear boy clothes and girl clothes as a girl, more so than what guys could do. So to me, I was yeah, no, being a girl is the better one. And then, yeah, learned that sexism exists. That was a bad day. I was very shocked, and I was just that's just dumb. Yeah, I remember when I learned, I think it was my pop told me that, yeah, the world's not fair when it comes to genders and stuff, and I was what? Yeah, and I'm trying to think, this is very rambly, but just giving context of, my experience with things, I was definitely accepting of trans people a while before I figured out for myself. It's actually funny. So one of the this is gonna be funny to people that are familiar with this creator. One of the creators I watched when I first started to learn about trans people was Blair White. If you are unfamiliar with Blair White, she is a conservative trans woman. She's not very accepting of non-binary identities. It's been a while since I've watched her content. This would have been 2022 maybe, 2023, that sort of time. So it's possible that her opinions have changed. But yeah, I guess she seemed like one of the normal trans people, you know, she had more conservative values, which naturally I more had at the time because that had been what I was raised on and hadn't explored alternate perspectives. I definitely don't really agree with a lot of the stuff that Blair says now. And the way that I ended up, I guess, sort of moving away from her content was the whole J.K. Rowling stuff, because I was very interested in Harry Potter. Harry Potter was my, like, childhood. I was known as that Harry Potter kid. If you had questions at school, everyone knew to come to me to talk about Harry Potter. If you had a question about stuff, I knew the answers. I, like, read all the books, watched all the movies. I made Spoo badges, which if you're unfamiliar with it, like, especially if you've only seen the movies, in one of the books, Hermione makes this organization that's supposed to help house elves. And I completely missed the idea that, like, J.K. Rowling was making fun of her for that, but I literally made paper badges of Spoo because that was something that I thought was important, or something that just, yeah, I made lots of artwork, fan fictions, all of it. Like, Harry Potter was something very important to me, and it still kind of, like, hurts that, like, it's only been recently that I actually started getting rid of merchandise and stuff, because I had, like, shirts, I had, like, see this banner here, I had a big, like, Ravenclaw banner, yeah, like, I did all my, like, the quizzes of your Hogwarts houses, I made quizzes on Quotev to do with things, I think I made one, like, where you picked out stationery and it gave your Hogwarts house, like, yeah, I was very into Harry Potter, but Blair White, I remember seeing her video on the topic, and she was like, no, this isn't transphobic, she's in the right, sort of thing, and I was like, okay. When I first watched that, I'm like, this seems reasonable, I agree with this, but I am curious why basically every other trans person seems to disagree with this. So I ended up watching, I think it was Jamie Dodger's video, which had sources, and kind of exposed to me how I mostly agreed with the stuff Blair White was saying, because she didn't have to prove her points. It was based on existing biases I had, because, like, she was supporting sort of, like, internalized beliefs I didn't even realize I had, whereas, like, despite the other video coming from a place that was further away from my existing beliefs, they had evidence, and, like, it was more well researched. It wasn't just someone giving an opinion, like, anecdotally. Like, they had sources, you know, references, that sort of thing. That made me go, oh, so, like, that kind of switched my mind. And then, like, I guess, you know, algorithm, seeing more other creators, watching a bit of Jamie Dodger's videos, because his videos just have a fun vibe and stuff. So yeah, like, it is kind of funny, like, when I tell people that, like, Blair White was kind of my introduction, because Blair White isn't exactly, she's a controversial figure, to say the least, within the trans community, but I can't fully dislike her, because, hey, Blair White, you're probably part of the reason why I'm one of those non-binary weirdos you like to make fun of. You know, I would have blue hair right now if, I wasn't lazy and keep forgetting to dye it. I have had blue hair dye, box hair dye, and bleach for ages that I've been meaning to do, but, Mom doesn't trust me to do it myself. Because she thinks I'll make a mess, so she wants to do it. I'm just, like, being busy and stuff, life. So yeah. I guess that gives a bit of background to, like, parts of my journey. Things to do with, like, a representation that I saw that I guess was positive for me was, Frankie Stein in G3. With, like, sort of, G3 kind of came out around the time that I was exploring things. And so, like, I think that Frankie contributed to that. Like, I actually have a couple of their dolls, that's why they're in the thumbnail. If you're unfamiliar with, like, Monster High is, it's basically like a fashion doll line. I used to watch the original stuff as a kid, and they kind of rebooted, I think. Ooh, when did they reboot? I feel like it was possibly at the end of it was either the end of 2022 or the end of 2023. They rebooted. They did reboot at the end of a year, I know that much. But yeah, cool stuff. Like, I think I've got 2 Frankie dolls. I've always been a fan of Frankie's style, but yeah, Frankie was kind of an important character to me. But yeah, I guess moving away from me, now that you've got my big rant, some stuff that I guess, like, if you're looking to write characters, now, there's like two kind of sort of types of representation, I would say. There are stories that are specifically about the experience, so that'd be like a story that's focused on, this is about a trans character and trans stuff. Whereas then there's more like passive, I guess, representation where a character just happens to be trans. I feel like that if you're not part of a community yourself, the more passive representation is probably the route you should go. Just because, like, if you're gonna write a story explicitly about that, that requires more research, and chances are just, like, that's something that I would probably, like, for example, I wouldn't write a story about the black experience, because I'm not black, sort of thing. Like, so I wouldn't write something like, I think it's The Hate You Give. That's not my kind of story to tell, whereas, having a character that just, like, is black, is something, like, I don't know if that comparison makes sense to people. I'm just, like, using an example that's a bit, like, yeah, I don't know if that made sense, but, like, so if you're wanting to write a trans character, but you're not, like, trans yourself, and you're just wondering what sort of things to do, first of all, write character first. Their transness should affect who they are, because, you know, like anything, like, gender does affect how people interact with the world, how they think and stuff, but they should just be an interesting character first and foremost. They should have a role in the story beyond being a tokenistic representation. They should have more to do than just being, like, to tick off a box saying, look, we did the trans thing. Because tokenism is a thing where basically, yeah, a character's just there to tick off a diversity quota. And a good way to avoid that is just if they have more to do than just being like, look, guys, I'm the girl of the group. Like, I don't know, something like Smurfette and the Smurfs being like, yes, I am the girl. Everyone else has, like, their name based on a personality trait. My personality is I'm a woman. Sort of thing. So yeah, like, I know that the advice of just, like, oh, write, like, people say this, like, when you're writing female characters is, you know, write a character first and that just happens to be this thing, but that can be a good starting point. I also find that, like, I know that for me, especially before I realized things, I was really scared that I'd do stuff wrong, that I would make offensive representation, but I find a good way to avoid sort of issues is also having more than one character part of a group, especially the bigger your cast is. Now, this will vary depending on how big your series, but, like, I know what most of you manga artists are like. I am guilty of this. We all want to write the next One Piece. We all want to write this massive saga. So you are going to have a lot of characters, chances are. So yeah, having multiple characters within a certain, like, group can help avoid tokenism, but also show that, like, this character doesn't behave this way just because, like, they happen to be trans. They behave this way because that's who they are. So, like, Arcane is a good show for this, like, because they have a lot of women characters. There's a good video by Schnee about how Arcane writes women, which I feel like that idea can apply similarly to, like, trans people, because we're not a monolith. We're all different. We all have different ideas of what trans means, of what gender is. Like, some people like to be more conforming, whereas I'm like, I can be a dude and still wear a skirt. And then I'll feel bad later on and be like, I'm faking, I'm not performing it right, but then feel stupid because I'm like, these gender norms are dumb. So, like, whereas some people have a more medical sort of value, like, they view it as, this is a medical condition, you know, I am because based on, like, they might still have a more rigid concept of girls do this, guys do that. Like, people just have different experiences. It can be based on, like, culture, just their general values. Like, some people value gender norms and roles more than others. And that can be reflected through trans people as well. Like, yeah, I feel like that it doesn't help that a lot of stories will only have a couple of characters, if that. So they kind of have to make them perfect so that, you know, they represent the community. So if you just have multiple characters, like, you can have, like, I don't know, like, people are probably scared to, you know, write problematic queer characters. You know, they don't want it to be like, oh, well, they're a villain, and like have people go, oh, well, they're just bad because of this sort of stuff. And yeah, a good way to avoid issues like that is just, I don't know, have some trans bad guys, have some trans good guys, just like how you would write guys. Or like, I use like a cis straight white dude, you know, like no sort of, considered the default and stuff. Like, we don't, I had a point. Like, yeah, just, I would say one thing is just don't be scared is the main thing. Like, do your research and stuff. Be aware of what tropes to avoid. For example, I guess you get like Lily Simpson, I think is there. There's a YouTube channel where they basically analyze trans representation across different media. I watch them regularly. I should really know off the top of my head who they are, but they're possibly a good thing to see, just like some of the common pitfalls and stuff. I feel like a common bad trope you get is, because like trans women tends to be more common than trans men that I've seen, but like the whole thing of like, oh, it's a joke because it's like you slept with a dude, because like they view it through this idea of like biology, and it's like, oh, haha, you got tricked, that woman has male parts, like stuff like that. An easy thing to just avoid. But also like if you say have a non-binary character with like, I feel like a lot of series have it where they automatically like characters just know what pronouns to use because they probably don't want to have issues with misgendering, but like I feel like that's an experience that isn't common. Like I'm someone that everyone assumes is she, her. That's just my experience. I also haven't changed my name because names are hard. You think that I struggle to name characters. You think that I can come up with a name for me? It's been 2 years and still haven't picked a name. And yeah, like people ask, and it's like, oh, do you have like a preferred name? And it's like, it's a work in progress. But yeah, just like, I feel like a lot of the things is just that, especially in mainstream media, it is very performative. They want to look good. It's similar to why you have issues with like some women representation where they just end up in this Mary Sue sort of territory and no one enjoys the character because they're scared to let the character be flawed because they think that will make them look bad, as if like it also just like doesn't help that you get a lot of unnuanced sort of critique online. But yeah, just I just like be willing to write messy characters. Treat them like, I feel like trying to avoid treating them with this like sort of bubble. If you're writing a story where everyone is sort of morally grey and stuff, they should also probably be morally grey, unless they have some sort of reason where they just happen not to be. Like, I guess sometimes you'll have like good characters, but yeah, like treat them like, and it is hard because sometimes you do it like subconsciously, like where you're scared that you're scared that you're gonna hurt people, like if you stuff it up, kind of thing, which was something that I know that I was very scared of when I was younger, and like getting into things, because even when I wasn't particularly accepting, I was going to include queer characters and stuff, because like I was in high school, like people were identifying as gay and stuff, like, so I was like, yeah, if I'm gonna write a high school, like I'm not gonna have everyone be straight, because that's just not my experience, that's just not the reality right now, like I'm not gonna just ignore that because I can look around. People from different cultures and stuff exist. Like especially here in Australia, it's pretty multicultural. Yeah. I also find that so something I guess is specific to do with like manga and stuff is a lot of characters I found because Japanese pronouns and stuff work a bit differently to how we do, and like you'll have characters that aren't explicitly stated to be trans. Like, we like to have, for a character to be considered legitimately queer, they have to be, like, explicitly go, it's like they have to come out to us as the audience, for a queer interpretation to be taken seriously, if that makes sense. Like, if you just, like, this is an example, there's a 6-hour video essay on how Riku is gay, and honestly, everyone that I've talked to about Kingdom Hearts agrees that Riku is very gay, but I've noticed that in fandom spaces, these kind of headcanons and stuff, they aren't treated as legitimate. It's like the only interpretations that are allowed is they have to be cishet unless explicitly stated otherwise. If you present evidence from the text, like genuine analysis that indicates this is why I think this character is coded to be this specific way, it's dismissed as you just, as like, you just, oh, you're just projecting, you're just forcing it into everything. Whereas, like, this is really frustrating for me as someone studying English literature, like, and who likes to analyze text. If you can earnestly, like, engage and show indications of how the text is showing things, especially, like, I find it frustrating that for, like, queer interpretations of text to be treated as legitimate, it has to have the author, like, it's like the authority is only on the author, like, to say that, yes, this character is this sexuality and stuff. Like, it doesn't matter how much, like, there is in the text to indicate towards these things, and, like, there could be no indication that a character, like, you do realize that if they haven't explicitly stated to be straight, that's also a headcanon, but that's not treated in the same sort of way. So yeah, I find it frustrating that I guess there's this onus that you have to make it very explicit for it to count as representation and stuff. And yeah, I do wish that things like headcanons and stuff, especially because, like, there are countries where, like, okay, in the West, I can understand why we would have that expectation of, you know, Western media, I guess, but, like, for example, I play things like Genshin Impact. I'm pretty sure China has some censorship on certain things. So, like, they're not going to release a character that's just, like, that's explicitly stated to be certain, like, part of certain communities, I don't think. I have heard potentially in Honkai that they have that, but, like, then, like, yeah, I find it frustrating that analysis gets dismissed just purely because it's like, oh, you're just forcing gay stuff into it. Like, yeah, I can understand that there are certain headcanons that are purely done, not based on any textual evidence, just based on vibes or just for fun. And, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I still find it annoying that, like, yeah, like, if you headcanon or, like, things that, and can provide, hey, here is why I believe this based on the text, and this explanation makes more sense than just the default, it's just dismissed, which is just kind of annoying to me, because it like limits the conversations we can have about text. It limits, like, what representation has to be. It has to basically be where a character explicitly states what they are for it to count. Like, which I guess comes back to things like manga and stuff, where a lot of the time they're just, like, implying and stuff, like, you know, they'll use gender-neutral pronouns, or, like, yeah, it just creates these expectations and stuff that, like, I just don't think need to be there. I'm not explaining this super well, but, like, for example, we've studying Shakespeare and stuff, half those sonnets are gay. I am not just projecting here. Part of specifically being told is, like, we were told in our analysis, don't try and disprove this, especially because you don't have the space and time, and this is, like, accepted. But, like, a lot of the, like, the pretty sonnets, the ones that you think of as so romantic, they're written about a dude. So, like, yeah, queerness isn't a recent thing, but I feel like that, you know, like, even though one of the ones that I read, I think, specifically said he, but, like, if they didn't, like, if they left it neutral, if that was written today, if someone wrote a sonnet today, left it neutral and ambiguous, I feel like that, yeah, the only accepted explanation would be a cis straight one. Yeah, like that, which, like, that is the default and stuff, but, like, I don't know, just readings of different texts through different lenses is cool. It encourages, discussions and thought, and I just find it frustrating that, like, it gets dismissed away. And this isn't just exclusively, like, a trans thing, but just, like, and also, like, I've had characters that I've tried to, I guess, explain why I headcanon this way, to try and connect with people, to explain my experiences through a character. For example, I headcanon Chong-Yun from Genshin Impact is autistic, and, like, I was trying to explain, like, I was gonna explain that to my friend to try and explain what autism is like for me, because they weren't getting it. But I didn't really get that far. Like, this former friend, wasn't particularly accepting, but, like, I don't know, they just sort of was like dismissed it away instantly as me just, forcing my experience into everything. And, like, I'm not saying that that's the only interpretation. Things having multiple interpretations is cool. Yeah. And then you also get things where, like, translation issues. Like, I know that, in Black Butler, I didn't realize Grell was supposed to be a trans woman until I looked it up online, because, I watched it in dub, and the dub made it seem like that, Grell was just a femme-presenting guy. Like, which, I mean, it is set in an era and stuff that kind of makes sense that people around wouldn't be accepting, but from what I can tell, part of it was, like, dubbing issues and stuff, and, like, that bias coming in, or things like Psyche K. Psyche was actually born a woman, canonically, but they cut that out of the anime, and there's not an official English translation of the manga, of the Psyche K manga, which is really annoying, because there are episodes that, like, refer to the manga if you want more context on this, and it's like, I can't. But yeah, Psyche is canonically trans based on, like, based on, I guess, the idea of, like, technically came out of the womb as a girl, and then, like, was, because, like, the powers and stuff, but, like, you wouldn't know that just from watching the anime, because that got cut out. Likely just to avoid, I guess, that kind of controversial concept and stuff. Yeah, also, I guess there's things that I saw that possibly helped me to not realize that certain experiences of mine were kind of trans. Like, there was the movie Now and Then, which was, like, a 90s chick flick sort of film, and one of the characters basically tapes their chest, and then kind of just grew out of it. Like, I think it was more presented of them being uncomfortable in their femininity. They kissed a guy and then stopped taping their chest. And see, I would have wanted to tape my chest. The only reason why I didn't, because after watching that, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. The other reason why I didn't is I was worried I would get in trouble for wasting tape. I used to actually pray every day in the shower for God, because I was religious at the time. I used to pray to God, being like, I don't want kids, so it's like, I don't need them, so hey, just don't. And, like, I had family members that, complimented on it. I just thought that I would grow into it and suddenly like them. I guess having that, like, movie made it seem like that it was a normal thing to be really viscerally uncomfortable with your chest. And things like The Big Bang Theory has Amy talking about, I think, like, the Freudian concept of I forget what it's called, but, like, some sort of envy kind of thing. Like, just, yeah, there were certain pieces of media that presented things, like, it's not that every single experience, like, there's probably plenty of cis women that are uncomfortable with their chest. It's more like, in my experiences, that made me realize is it the combination of them all, if that makes sense. Like, I had a trans Barbie as a kid because I got two of the same doll and just was like, cool, this one's a dude now. Because, yeah, like, in my head, I think as a kid, guys were just the people called guys, girls were just the people called girls. And I guess, like, there was a sense of presentation of, like, I put the pants and shirt on the guy one. I remember I used to go by Mr. Macaron online. Despite fully identifying as a girl, I just thought that Mr. sounded cooler. Yeah. I was like, yeah, no, I'm just calling myself Mr. in a very girl way. Like, yeah, just, there were signs. There were definitely indicators, but, like, these things just aren't real, especially, like, it's probably talked about in, well, I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's necessarily talked about more now, because there are definitely being things that, like, people don't want it talked about, but, like, me being raised very conservatively, very religiously, did not change. That did not mean that I didn't end up trans. It just meant it took me longer to figure it out. It just meant I was unhappy. I was uncomfortable, didn't understand why, just felt like I was weird, like there was something wrong with me. But, like yeah, I find it frustrating when people are like, oh, we don't want to, things, because, like, that'll make them uncomfortable. You're still gonna be uncomfortable, you're just gonna blame yourself. You're just gonna think that, you're just being stupid. Like, it's the same with things like, oh, don't want to give that, like, diagnosis because I'll just use it as an excuse, or they'll feel funny and stuff. Like, I still felt weird from, like, because I was autistic and stuff. I just thought that I was stupid and lazy and just wasn't doing things right. I didn't realize that there was a legitimate reason. I just thought that, like, I knew something was wrong with me, but because I didn't have, like, a technical thing, I just thought that I sucked. Like, yeah, I get that, and it also doesn't help that people view it in such a, kind of, like, I guess they view it in such a biological way, like, queerness gets sort of sexualized and stuff, where they think of it as inherently, like, they go to the sex side of things, which, like, for me, my transness isn't really defined much about genitals. That's, like, the last kind of thing I'm thinking about, because, like, I'm not thinking about my private parts all the time. That's, I mean, maybe some people that have, like, specifically bottom dysphoria do, but, like, I'm not thinking about other people's private parts either. Like, if I see someone, I'm not assuming their gender based on their genitals, because I don't see that. I don't think about people's private parts. And when I do, I feel weird, because it's intrusive thoughts. It's not like I'm going, I wonder if this person has blank. I wonder if this person has a this. Like, is that normal? I don't think it is. Like, yeah, we make it based on other characteristics, but, like, that's what people focus on, and they're like, oh, you can't tell kids about it because, they'll, and, like, surgeries and stuff. Like, kids do not conceptualize who's a boy and a girl based on private parts. They're possibly not even aware that at certain ages, depending on, like, I mean, I think I was aware of things because, like, having, like, buds with, like, I had a brother, and, like, sometimes as a kid, like, you'd both bath together, so, like, I had, I guess, an awareness that some people had looked different down there, but, like, I didn't think of boys are people with this, girls are people with this. It was based on, like, other factors, and I find it weird that, like, when it comes to the trans thing, that's what everyone thinks about. Like, yeah, if someone tells me, like, that they trans and stuff, my instant thought isn't to go, like, to start thinking about their private parts. That's weird. Yeah, like, just, and, like, childhood is so gendered. Like, people are like, oh, you need to protect them, like, they're not old enough to know their gender. Have you been to, okay, as someone who collects dolls and stuff, I go into the toy section. Toys are so unnecessarily gendered. Like, you can tell who, like, and so are kids' clothes. Like, they're, like, the pinks and dresses and the boy stuff. Like, or they'll have things that's like, this is this for girls, this is this for boys. Like, kids are exposed to the concept of gender from birth. Like, if you don't think that kids are old enough to know about gender, maybe raise them a bit more neutrally. Like, just, I don't know, it feels hypocritical, like, and stuff, that it's like, oh, they're not old enough to, like, know about gender and stuff, but, like, no one questions if someone's cis or straight. No one has to come out as those things. Like, when I said that I was Aries, that everyone's like, oh no, you'll find someone. It's like, I felt weird. I felt like something was wrong with me because I wasn't having crushes. Everyone assumed I was. They assumed I was lying when I said I didn't like people. Like, it's just frustrating because, like, there's just there's like expectations and stuff, and like the second that you diverge from it, like, yeah, it's just annoying. Like, yeah, I just like it's yeah, this stuff's frustrating, and like it's hard to explain these things to people, and it feels frustrating that like you have to justify yourself to be treated with like a tiny bit of respect. And half the time, like, I'm too scared to correct people. Like, I will feel uncomfortable being called like she and stuff, but I won't correct people because I'm worried that I'll make them feel uncomfortable. I'm worried that they'll be transphobic and react poorly to me, or that I'll make the community look bad for, being too aggressive, being like one of the annoying, mean trans people. Like, I also struggle with going to bathrooms because I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing morally to go into the women's because I'm not a woman. And transphobes make it really clear they don't want men in the women's bathroom, but I don't feel like I would be safe in the men's, and I don't want to make everyone else uncomfortable. And so, like, most of the time, unless I really have to go, like, I probably went like a year where I would just not go to bathrooms in public because the only like gender neutral ones in place is disability ones, and I don't want to take away that from people that need it. I don't want to be taking up a resource from like people that need to be using those bathrooms for medical reasons. And like half the time I will just go into the women's because it's like that's less likely to make other people feel uncomfortable, even though I will feel really bad. Like, I've had panic attacks over going to bathrooms. I've had like bad dreams about it. Like everyone doesn't want non-women in the women's bathroom, but then like I'm like the guys' bathrooms scare me because like men are statistically more likely to hurt me. I have been hurt by men before. Also, urinals kind of freak me out. Like because in the women's bathroom we don't have anything like that. Everyone's in stalls. You don't see people and stuff. So that just sounds really like weird. But it's also funny because like it's kind of funny that they talk about like protecting kids from things, but like kids go into the wrong bathrooms all the time. Like, my mom was a single mother. My brother went into the women's bathroom with us because she didn't want to send him alone into the men's bathroom. I know someone who's a single dad with a daughter. He brings her into the men's bathroom, because she's like 6. She needs supervision and stuff. Like, and like you don't have gendered bathrooms at home, and just. I know this isn't related to manga and it's just evolving into a rant, but it's just like it's frustrating that like being strawmanned when there are legitimate people assaulting women. If that is what you are worried about, which is usually the argument done that it's like about protecting women and children, then what are you doing about the people actually assaulting people? What are you doing about that? Instead of focusing on this hypothetical, this thing that doesn't have evidence supporting it. Like, if someone's going to assault someone, they're not going to give us stuff if they're allowed in the bathroom or not. If they also can just assault people in other places. Like, people get kidnapped. Half the time you're assaulted by people that you trust and know. Like, but like people aren't doing things about that because that's not. It's just like, I don't know, if you're gonna claim to care about something, like, please just like, there's so much, like, these people claim to be like, oh, facts don't care about your feelings, but then they ignore the facts. It's purely based on feelings. These arguments are purely based on fear of cis men. Because the argument isn't about, they're not actually generally worried about trans women. They're not worried about trans women just using the bathroom, although they're the ones that are going to assault women. Usually it's like, oh, well, if we let trans women in the women's bathroom, then men could just dress up and sneak in. So you're worried about men. That's who you're afraid of. You're afraid of cis men. So why are they not the ones that you're critiquing and stuff? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And, like, I get it. I get why this stuff is so pervasive, because for a lot of people, like, they have been hurt. They know people that have been hurt. And, like, fear is something really easy to, like, it festers, it builds upon itself. I can understand these fears, because I have felt them. Like, the idea of, oh, a guy coming into the bathroom, that's terrifying. Like, for most, like, women and stuff, their greatest fear is being just assaulted and stuff. Like, I can understand, like, why, like, there's a lot of hurt and stuff that doesn't get addressed, and just feeling like any sort of agency of, like, oh, if we can fix this, then, like, that solves the issue. But, like, it's unrelated. It doesn't address the problem. Like, yeah, this has definitely devolved away from the manga thing, but just, yeah, I guess I have some thoughts and feelings about these things, and I'm probably going to annoy people with this video, which, honestly, if you're transphobic, you probably shouldn't be, you shouldn't be subscribed to a trans person. That's just, I mean, that kind of makes sense. I can understand, like, having, like, disagreements and stuff, and I'm okay, like, with people disagreeing, asking honest questions. Like, if there's something that you don't understand about trans people, I will try my best to answer in the comments. I'm okay with that. If you're asking an actual genuine question, not just a straw man argument, or, like, if you're not being a butthead, I will engage with you, kind of thing. Just, like, I don't know, representation matters, because, like, people, like, especially if you don't, like, aren't interacting with a lot of people that, like, from a community, if you don't actually know actual people, like, in your life, what you see online and stuff, or in movies, that's your conception of what the thing is. So I can understand why people have these really warped perceptions, because, like, you get a lot of these compilations of, like, cringe, like, trans people being all weird and stuff, and, like, half the time it does kind of, is mocking also autistic people, but that's a conversation for a smarter person to dissect. But, like, I can understand if this is the narrative you're presented, why, like, I felt these same fears, I felt these same ways, like, I get it. I was raised with these beliefs. I was raised very Christian. I was anti these things. I actually apologized to one of my cousins a couple of years ago, because I said some heinous things, because, like, I would get in trouble for saying these things to people, because it's like, oh, that's offensive and stuff. But these were the same things that my family and stuff would say behind their back. It's just that I was too autistic to filter it out and not know to say it to their face. Like, I was told that, hey, being gay is bad. So, like, if I saw something that was gay, which could just be as simple as a dude wearing pink, I would voice and say, oh, that's wrong. Or I remember there was a conversation about politics and stuff, and I had basically been told this binary of, like, this party good, this party bad. It's like when someone was saying good things about the other, I was saying, but they're this. And like, getting told off and saying, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, like, getting in trouble and stuff for just repeating the kind of things that they were saying. But because I, was saying it, I wasn't being polite and just saying it behind people's backs. I guess that was the problem. Like, yeah, just because I was presented things in very simplistic terms that, like, this is evil, like, you need to repent. Like, I went to the kind of school that tried to, like, pray the gay away from a fellow student, like, very religious. There was actually a bill that was nearly passed in Australia that would have allowed religious schools to, it didn't pass, but it was proposed that would allow the religious schools to kick out queer students and fire teachers based on that sort of thing. I wasn't at this super religious Christian school. I was actually at a Catholic school, which, funnily enough, all the teachers I had did not want this bill to pass. A kind of bill that was supposed to be helping for these people, they didn't want it. But this school is more chill. I would have expected the Christian school I wanted to. I feel like they would have wanted something like that. They would have been very happy to kick you out. But also, this was when I was in probably my last couple of schools. I was like, what? Am I just, if this goes through, could I just be kicked out of school? I didn't even know I was trans. I just was asexual. I'm basically, a non-religious nun. And what? I just don't get an education because of something I didn't choose? Because of, something that, so stupid and unrelated? It's not, and yeah, all my friends group was also basically, it was scary. So and that was something that didn't pass, so I don't even want to imagine, what it must be like in the US, where I think that they are having more conservative things, like book bannings and stuff. I don't know if they have a similar bill to that. Yeah, it's just... I might just stop rambling, because I'm realizing that I've been rambling for a while, but, this stuff matters, seeing things, just treating people like human beings. It sounds simple, but, trans people have existed throughout history. Non-binary identities have been found throughout cultures and stuff. They like to treat it like it's this new thing, because I guess that makes sense, because, more conservative traditional values like the idea of going back to the past. And if they don't like transness, then I guess by making it sound like that it's a new invention, it's easier, if that existed in the past, I don't know if I'm making sense, it helps with the narrative to pretend it's a new thing. And, for some of them, they probably think legitimately it is, because they only started hearing about it recently. So, in your head, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but, if you kind of, I don't know, tend to conceptualize based on when you learn about something, that's when that thing came into existence, which just isn't often the case. But yeah, you kind of construct this idea in your head. But, it's important for trans characters to exist across media. There's also, in the thumbnail, I intentionally picked Frankie is from, a show intended for kids. Psyche is from a shonen, so, teenagers. And then I also had Sally Mae, who I didn't really talk about, but, from an adult show, I feel like this representation is important for people across life, because people recognize things, at different points, and just, this whole narrative that, it can't be in kids shows. Kids shows have, especially, with queer things, they're no, that's too sexual and stuff. It's there are so many things that are centered around romance and stuff. What are you talking about? If you're okay with it straight, there's, if you're okay with kissing, that isn't particularly different regardless of the genders. There's just, definitely, the bias that it's more inherently sexual if it's queer people doing it, which is weird. I don't know, they I guess they assume that, if you want to make gay characters, you're gonna, the kids, you're gonna have, explicit gay sex scenes, and it's no. Yeah. I hope that this video is, being informative. I don't know how helpful it is as writing advice. I guess it's good to get an idea of, a perspective. If you want to do research and stuff, look at things that, at media, just, if you can't interact with people in real life, just seeing different channels about trans people, so Jessie Gender's one that I watched, they do some pretty, big brain stuff. I think there's someone else that does, big brain videos, but they don't release super often. Things like Jammy Dodge is good if you just want to watch, casual things. I think there's No Offense was one. I haven't seen them on my feed for a while, but I used to watch them a lot. Kind of just, reacting to memes and stuff, so those kind of things. Yeah, and, there's lots of books and stuff. If you look up articles, you can find, different manga. Even My Hero Academia has some trans characters. Hunter x Hunter does. What else does? So if you're looking for recommendations of it in examples, we'll end on that note. So yeah, My Hero Academia has Magni and Tiger, I think they are, trans characters. Hunter x Hunter has Killua's sister, I cannot think of her name, is trans. You've got who else is there? We mentioned Grell. I mean, there's Psyche from Psyche K. You've got the one from Comey Can't Communicate. Oh, I can't think of the name. Najume, I think it is like, who else is there? You've got Hanj. I'm pretty sure it was written with gender neutral pronouns, although was very much presented as a girl in the dub, I think. Who else is there that I can think of? Did I mention Sailor Uranus from Sailor Moon? Like, yeah, there are characters and stuff if you want to look into like reading different examples, and then there's stuff in like Western media, like cartoons, more shows and stuff. Nemona's really cool. Nemona's a movie I can recommend. I would recommend stuff like Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss, but like, despite being very queer shows, they don't have like there's Sally Mae, but they don't have a lot of prevalent trans characters. Like Sally Mae isn't a particularly major character. I mean, they're still there, but a lot of them are background characters compared to like other queer identities, like sexualities are prevalent in that show. I think Heartstopper has a trans character. I watched the first season. I haven't watched season 2 yet. What else? There are things like a lot of more if you're reading like more independent, less mainstream media, so things like books have a lot of more things like the further you get away from like your mainstream, just like blockbuster movies, the more likely you are to actually find representation. Yeah, things like web comics and stuff, like, yeah, I recommend looking for maybe smaller things because they're more likely to, you know, be from creators who, you know, are trans themselves, less likely to have been filtered through by executives trying to, you know, make it more palatable. And then also you just get to some more cool, like, more independent creators. There are definitely like sources and stuff like for books and things. I'm trying to think if I've got any books that... The fact I can't think of if I've got any novels that do kind of makes me interested, because I'm like, why don't I? I can't think of if I have any novels that do, and I'm looking at my bookshelf and stuff. Oh wait, no. Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson has a gender fluid character. There we go. Yeah. So I'm gonna go, because my neck hurts. And I have rambled a lot. And yeah, if you've gotten this far, thank you. I hope you enjoy your day. Yeah, I hope that this video wasn't too heavy.